Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here. Bob Stewart over there. Bob, how you doing today?
All right, well, Chad, we'll find out, man. You and we've been recording podcasts for, close to 4 years now. And we've been doing it for, I don't know how long, the last two remotely, right? We used to do it in the studio together for many years in Bellingham. And the last two recordings we've done in a row, my computer's crashed. And so I don't know if the universe is saying like, this podcast is getting old and crusty, do something different. I don't know, man, but we'll see if we get through this one today.
Maybe we just have a hacker. Maybe one of our fans just hacked your
Somebody's
computer.
trying to bring us down, Chad. Somebody's trying to bring us down. It's the deep state.
Comcast is finally against us because we've bashed them so many times.
I'm blaming them. It's definitely their fault.
I'd absolutely believe it's them. Bob, we've got a guest today that, well, I think he's going to bring some amazing value to even you because, usually you're our note taker. So I see you got the pen in hand there. I'm going to challenge you.
I'll try not to click on it. I'll try to. I know you.
We know you're going to take the notes for us as we bring him onto the call. I want to get right to it. I had a chance to talk to him before you got here for the recording a little, and I know we've got value to get to. So I want to welcome Dave to our podcast. Dave, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Well, thank you, Chad, and thanks, Bob, too, for being here. I really appreciate you.
Well, absolutely.
You can already hear it in the voice, right? Really appreciate you, right? You know he's from somewhere that comes with an accent. We might get to that. Dave, I don't read bios. I have one, right? We all have them. I think bios are written to fluff things, make things. And you know what? I just want to know Dave. So introduce yourself to our audience as you see fit, Dave.
Oh my goodness. I have a real challenge with bios myself, because I've often been asked to, well, write your bio. What do you do? And all of that kind of good stuff. So I think I'm going to sum it up by saying that I'm a business guy. I happen to do a number of different businesses. I learned how to make things work. I learned how to communicate. I learned how to help other people get what they want. And I became very successful in a couple of industries, actually. Right now, I'm a published author and a mentor and a trainer. And I spend most of my time working with people to help them figure it out for who they are. It's can't put everybody in the same mold. You can't get everybody doing the same thing. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. Everybody's got circumstances. So what I try and do is tailor what I understand to their position in life and living.
Okay, so before we jump into the questions, Dave, I want you to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, maybe reach out and connect with you right at the beginning. We'll plug it again at the end. That way, if they're sitting here listening to us talk and they're like, I got to know more about this guy, they already can start typing it in. So where are they going to find you and all of that?
So if they go to besmarterwithdave.com, then they'll get some information and open up an opportunity.
Bob started typing right away.
Dave can see me firing away over here. The crowd can't, but okay. I'm there.
Besmarterwithdave.com.
And when you go there, this machine's going to collect your information, and then you can get the free download and then also set up a one-on-one with me, which is a no-cost, free of charge conversation. Because here's the bottom line. Communication is the universal solvent. So unless we can communicate, it's going to be very difficult for me to even provide anything for you because it's going to be based on you. And one of the things I learned most importantly was my success came about by helping other people get what they wanted. So that's the trick here.
Do we attribute that one to Zig? Is that Zig, right? If you help everyone get what they want, you'll get what you want.
I've heard that. I never read his book, but I think that's where it came from, maybe.
I think Zig Ziglar was the one that we get to attribute that quote to, the grandfather of all of this stuff. All right, so let's get to it, Dave. I heard you talking about communication. That's what we're doing here. We're communicating.
Yep.
Let's dive into that conversation of communication. I mean, you don't get anywhere without it in today's world, but we all need to be better at it, probably. So help us out.
Okay, so this was a fascinating area of learning and understanding. Um, because of my success, I peaked out in 1990, 91. I took off 20 years of doing anything. I started some other business interests. I traveled the world. I wrote my first book and taught from that aspect. And then I came back to wanting to be active because I was kind of bored with not doing very much and I wanted to get active again. And what I observed in talking to the next generation was an inability to communicate so that the people they were talking to understood what they were saying, so they could think with it, so they could utilize it, so they could, digest it and then take that to their circumstance and put two and two together and say, oh, okay, I can see how that could work. I could do that kind of a concept. And probably one of the biggest areas of weakness was not listening. That was the key. Not just, people would just go yap, 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 yap. But they were, they weren't listening to what the yap yap was. They didn't hear the signals. They didn't hear what was going on. And in my training, and I had lots of training in corporate America and my own businesses and working for other people in the sales and marketing arenas, what I was taught was you got to listen for what your customers telling you because they'll tell you when they're ready to buy. And so my ears were tuned, but I found that this generation that's currently operating don't want to listen for some reason.
Is there like, do you attribute that to something? I'm
Well,
raising young
education.
kids. I mean, they I feel like have struggles, right?
Yeah.
But like, is there something that these kids or this, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 generations have come through that, I mean, is it the internet? Is it having our nose stuck in these pads and phones and things? Or like, why do people struggle to, to really hear what's being said or to really listen?
This is a fascinating subject. I would say there's a couple of contributing facts. One is in today's generation, they're being spoon fed solutions. So they don't have to think about what to do or how to do it. You just Google search, this, and the answer's there. So they don't have to think about it. The second is the prior education. Our education in this country is about grade 5 level. So the illiteracy rate is less than 50%. So you got a lot of people that don't know how to read, that they have words they don't understand, so they can't comprehend what it is they're being talked about. So when they're listening to somebody, those words are going right over their head. They're not getting the intent of what's being said. So it was interesting. I went to a lecture about the Constitution of the United States and how when that was written in the 1700s, the illiteracy rate of the population was almost 100%.
Nobody could read and write. Like only the scribes and the
No,
smartest,
no,
right?
everybody could
Oh,
read and write.
everybody could. Okay. And they wrote in a way that was, I mean, you
Yeah,
go back
they
and
would.
read some of that stuff. It's hard for me, who I
Yeah,
feel pretty educated, to
yeah.
like even know what half the words they're using were back then.
So I where I really became successful was in network marketing, which in my to answer the question, because you might bring this up, is it's really a different style of doing business, but it's no different than Ford Motor Company or IBM. It's you market products to a population, and it's how you market it that creates the excitement and the incentive and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so that I think those are the two main areas.
Okay, so
Interesting.
you mentioned network marketing, and without getting into the detail of it, it's sales, right?
Hold on,
Network.
let's get into the detail. Do you mind, Dave? Because I look, and I don't know why. I really don't know why I have this. Because I had to go Google. I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure I know, but I think some people have a bad connotation around it, right? They would
Totally.
immediately put it in the multi-level marketing, the Amway,
Totally.
or right. And for better or worse, those things are what they are, I think. But like, give me the real definition of network marketing, or kind of the like peel back those couple layers that people immediately are like, hold on, no, I'm not into that kind of thing.
Well, I think that's the problem and challenge that goes on. It's with the assumption that they know and understand what it is, and then they put out the negative because maybe it was a neighbor, or maybe they got involved with something, maybe they didn't do well somewhere, and they create that consideration. Wow, that's just crap. That's garbage. That's what so and so said. They hear this. They, et cetera, et cetera. So all network marketing is a specific style of doing business with a specific structure that's unique to network marketing. Everything else the same. So as a business person, you have to have a bank account. You have to make sure your budgets are balanced. You have to make more than you spend. All of those cardinal rules. And in order to make it work, you have to talk to other people, but here's the key is rather than push your product on people, which is where the mistake is made, you got to find out what the people want. So it's a different flow. So I'm going to give a little story. Back in the day, I worked in a federal government program where you could buy a lottery ticket on BLM land, and if you won the lottery, you won the oil and gas rights. If you won the oil and gas rights, you could go to an oil company, and they would purchase the rights from you. They would drill, you'd get your royalties. So the company I worked with was very successful. They had lots of lease winners, lots of oil companies development. And our job was we were given these 3x5 cards with names on them. And we had to call these guys and then determine if they were qualified. And as a result of that, we found out that majority of people weren't qualified. So if you had 100 names, if you lucky, you got 2 names that were qualified to invest in it. And if you did that for a couple of weeks, you'd make a couple of sales. So the what I found was that there's network marketing was an unstructured, unregulated industry where anybody could walk in and control and manipulate what went on. And for years, it was the guy at the top of the stage who had the best voice, the biggest audience, that controlled the most, got the most influence. One was the guy that won. And then people tried to copy that guy. And where most people failed is they couldn't copy that guy. And they weren't taught on how it really works. In 1999, when I wrote my first book, Vested Interest, I was at big events, and guys in my organization who'd reached certain ranks were marching across the stage, all excited that they'd reached these ranks. And I looked at them and I thought, well, this is really strange. They're not making any money. What the hell's the deal here? And so there was a tendency to be emotionally involved in it, and all fired up. Oh yeah, I'm a this, I'm a that. Walk across the stage, get your award, be applauded, all that kind of stuff. And then, bottom line was they'd go home and they couldn't pay the bills. So I said, there's something wrong here, and that's where the first book was. Vested Interest, and people can get a hold of that as well. So there you go.
What skills do you think that the savage network marketer, what skills translate to any sales role, really maybe being successful as an entrepreneur at any scale?
Yeah, communication's number one. Being overt, being willing to get out there and communicate, to ask questions, not to be shy or intimidated. This is definitely not for everybody. It's just like, not everybody should be a doctor or an airline pilot. It falls in the same category, but necessity is another key for this kind of business, because there's a two-pronged aspect of being in network marketing. One is you're in sales and marketing, but two is you're an entrepreneur and you're your own business.
When you say necessity, you mean like I need to make money. I need to make these connections. Like I have to have something driving me.
Yes, that's right. You got to be driven. And people that typically work, I'm sure you guys do a podcast, and you don't have a boss over you saying you got to do the podcast. You were entrepreneurial. You decided that you wanted to do this. There was something inside you that said this, and it was aptitude. You had the aptitude, you put it together, and you got a chemistry, and Chad and Bob, make this thing work. Well,
Yeah.
it was the same thing with network marketing because I saw thousands of people come in, but not thousands of people making it because their aptitude towards it was not correct. And they were brought in for the wrong reasons.
Okay, so I got to be an overt communicator. I need to have something I can draw on, some necessity or reason. What else? What are some other skills that you see in these
You
guys
should
and
like to
gals
help
that?
people. You should like to work with people. There again, because in all of the plans that I've ever looked at or studied, you only make money when somebody else does something. So, for example, I had one gal in my organization that over a 27-year period of time did $285 million worth of sales. I didn't do that. She did that. She and her organization did that. Now, I helped and assisted her in doing that. I went to meetings, I traveled the world, I did everything I could humanly possibly do to support that idea, but really it was her drive, and then what she got was based on what people that she brought in did. So what's really fascinating about the concept is success comes about by you facilitating or helping somebody else find their way in this medium.
Chad, it's so fascinating. So, Dave, we're in the real estate industry. It's kind of I should say, a large portion of our audience is that. Chad and I, that's where our careers have kind of arced through. And Chad, was he talking about this? I go back, you think about Keller Williams, the EXP, the Real, right? Like a lot of these companies, they really have a network marketing effect in their recruiting. And right. So it's like I think about Active Rain was network marketing, Chad. We were rewarding people we were giving them points, and they'd go out and find new people, and they'd bring them in. And as they trained up those people, and they built bigger blogs. This is like this network marketing concept has really in the real estate industry become threaded through a lot of what we do around here, Dave. It's these companies today, you get rewarded for recruiting in an agent, right?
Sure.
You get some percentage of their GCI or their revenue or
Yep.
whatever it is.
Yep.
And really the hook, I think, is okay, now I got to pour into them potentially if I want, I want their 1% of their revenue to be bigger, right? I pour into them to train them to make them a better agent so that downline I make some, a little bit of an income because I brought them into the company.
Yeah, Bob, it's not limited to real estate. It's just our exposure is that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
The health industry is huge with network marketing, right? Of bringing on other trainers or other people. I think what we're seeing, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a guy who's been in it, is that network marketing is actually becoming much more mainstream, and many organizations are taking the benefits and examples of network marketing and bringing it into their organization and letting it organically grow that way.
Well, I think there's two things. One thing that Bob said was basically it's business 101. So as a bright individual that's heading up an idea and trying to build a business, what's the ultimate that you're trying to do is you're trying to get your product out there and so that the consumer consumes your product. Now, one of the things that I discovered was that most network marketers don't know what they're producing. So they don't, or they never identified the true product of network marketing. And the true product of network marketing was a successful distributor. So if I bring you into my business, my objective 100% is to help you become successful. Because if I don't, I'm wasting my time. And then what's going to happen? You're just going to fall flat on your face. You're going to be miserable as hell. You're going to complain. You're going to tell your neighbors. You're going to tell your friend. And basically, that's what's happened to the industry in general, because most people fail because they didn't get off on the right foot. They weren't given the right instructions, and they weren't supported and mentored. Those that were made it.
It's
There's
interesting.
plenty that have made it.
This is the real estate industry, like in a capsule, Chad.
Well, if you think about it, right nowadays, we just watch the video on it. Right now, just watch the video. You want to be in the okay. when it was back when, and maybe I'm wrong, but growing up, I remember Tupperware and Mary Kay were probably two
Yeah,
of the
those are the
bigger.
two that in my head were
And
where
you
I
didn't
come
get to
from.
host your own Tupperware party unless you did this and your sponsor came and they helped make the party a success and showed you how to do it and helped you to grow the organization. The stuff Dave's talking about, you've got to have a heart to help people if you're going to be successful in network marketing. And folks, more things are network marketing than you probably even realize anymore.
Yeah.
Now, Dave,
And you know, like Amway is the number one company. It still is the
of
number
course,
one company. It's growing, you know, still. I mean, there's been a depression in the industry for the last couple of years, but there are other reasons for that. But I think it's coming back because what people are realizing, the internet, which was supposed to be a total solution for everybody, is so competitive today. To try and get an audience with 3.4 billion people competing with you, it's for the little guy, it's hard. Whereas network marketing is a what I call a warm market business. And with you as an individual and your own warm market, you could build a multi-million dollar business. Take you probably 3 to 5 years, but that's what it took me 9 years. Made millions and millions of dollars and a residual income that was, you know, huge. And it's been going on for 35 years.
amazing. And I want to ask you a question in a second, Dave, about something you said earlier. Yet I'm going to ask Bob a question first because I think I know Bob well enough. Bob, I saw your fingers move, and I'm guessing you've typed like the top 10 network marketing companies or something along that line. Do you have that information in front of you?
I don't know,
Oh, that's
but
not what you were typing. You went
no,
right to Amway products.
I went to Amway, but only because I thought that I'm like, are they still called Amway? I thought they're like 10 or 15 years ago they changed the name to Quicksar or something like that.
Yeah,
And
like
so I don't know. I
Comcast
was just doing
Exchange.
some research as we were.
Yeah.
Um,
I figured the research was on some of the top networking marketing companies. So I wanted to see what you had come up with that people would recognize the names of some of those top companies. Dave clearly said Amway, which I
you
think
know
if
what's
we're
funny
trying
on here that the just whatever, you know, who knows what Google served up as but it had Amway,
okay,
Herbalife, Chad. So you mentioned you know,
healthcare.
the health and fitness. EXP Realty is the number 3 one on here, Chad. So you
Yep.
know this, Dave, in the last, I mean, Keller Williams, I think, really drove the way on this, Chad. But in the last 2 to 3 decades in real estate, this has been a massive trend, the network marketing trend in real estate. And
Yep.
who else? Primerica, Sunrun, Young Living, not necessarily companies that I recognize, by the way, but I'm sure our audience is like, I know who the Mary Kay is on here,
There you go.
Avon.
Oh, sure. Didn't even think about them. All right, Dave. So I want to go back to something you said a little earlier when you were giving us the ways to be a success in networking marketing that would also carry over into, well, everything in life. One of the things you mentioned was drive. You have to have drive. Now, I don't know that there's anybody who I would ask them and they would say, no, I don't have any. Right? I don't have any drive. I've got no drive. Everybody will tell me they have drive. How do you help somebody discover, find, hone that drive the way you probably did to help people become powerful successes in the company?
You know, it works on the formula of winning. You know, one of the first things that we were taught many years ago in network marketing is first thing you want to do is put a check in their mailbox, because once they see the check in their mailbox, then that's kind of like the, you know, the carrot and the stick. You know, there's the carrot. I'm going to go after it and do some more. So that's one aspect. But there's one thing I forgot to mention that's really important is you've got to have a strong group that you associate with, that you're playing with. So for to be successful in network marketing, yes, you as an individual can have all the oomph in the world, the aptitude and the aggressiveness and the ability to communicate and wanting to help other people. But if the group that you're associated with doesn't have it, isn't moving, isn't growing, then you're going to have a hard time. And then the other thing is the product that you are related to has to have an emotional impact. So there's got to be some emotional impact that your product creates with other people. I remember, okay, I was in Herbalife in the 80s and I'm in Los Angeles, California, and I'm driving over Laurel Canyon Boulevard, the canyon from the valley to the city. And I'm driving in a little, I think it was a 240ZX at that time. And all of a sudden, this car behind me has got its lights flashing, it's honking its horn, because I had the sign on my car saying, "Lose weight now, ask me how." So I'm getting a little bit miffed at this guy honking and flashing his lights. So I pull over. I was going to step out of the car and say, "What the F are you talking about?" And out of the car pops Ernest Borgnine. Now, Ernest Borgnine was McHale's Navy. This is old school, and the Poseidon Adventure. And
our audience is showing their age if they knew who he was before you started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right, yeah. Okay.
So I'm probably in my 20s at the time. And anyway, so he says, "Does that work?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, here's my number. Call my secretary, make an appointment." So again, from the standpoint of what can happen is what Mark Hughes did with Herbalife was he put it in a position, created the group, the excitement, which allowed the individual to play. So it would be, I would liken this again to a good football team. What football team today in 2024 is going to go to the Super Bowl? Well, if you were a player on Kansas City, you got a good shot, because they're doing really well. They got a good team, a support team, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a combination of factors that are involved to make this work for any individual. And again, if you're willing, if you want to do this, the freedoms on the other end are spectacular. You got to give it some time. You got to pay your dues. You got to learn what to do. And I would say it's no different. I tried real estate many times. I made some money. I lost some money. I just didn't have the aptitude to play the real estate game.
Man, I just keep going back because it's my main exposure, Chad. Yeah. EXP has that whole team concept, right? Like I think of our friends Kevin and Fred, like as they recruit people in, you become a part of that team. There, yes. Right? So I mean they I know, Chad, you may know this. I know Glenn Sanford from way back. We tried to partner with him early on Brio Realty in 2004 or whatever it was. So I've known Glenn for years. He's a smart dude. Like the more I'm listening to our friend Dave here, and then I'm like, Glenn knew all these things. Like he clearly had studied that network marketing effect to go in and position EXP in this way and have the teams. And it's interesting.
Now,
putting it together like in hindsight.
The title of my first book was called Vested Interest, and the definition of vested interest is a personal interest in a state of affairs with the understanding of gain. Now you go work for somebody, the employer has a hook. And the hook that you have there is that you have to work 2 weeks and then you get paid. So he's got you working for 2 weeks and then he pays you. In network marketing, you have to qualify to get paid. And qualifying by definition means you have to, sell products or recruit and create volume. It's the same thing, just a different definition. And so the way network marketing works is they create the game that if you want this prize, you got to qualify. So therefore you're motivated to work up to qualify to get that. And I'm sure this is no different than my wife's in wealth management, and she has those prizes where you build your client to you bring in so much volume, you get a prize. And so if you're motivated to get the prize, you're motivated to get the work.
That's a fascinating, like that whole concept of giving people prizes beyond whatever the financial benefits will be if they do that thing, Dave. Like that's a powerfully motivating. We see in our world all the time, like people will get up, like they need to make, 500 calls in their business.
iPad, right?
Yeah. But you give them an iPad and it's not the 500 calls that they needed to make would have led to the $20,000 paycheck. They don't make it to get to the $20,000 paycheck. They make the calls to win the $600 iPad. And you're like,
that they could have bought themselves easily if they had just made.
Yeah, but that idea of like gamifying things, giving like, silly. They're not silly. A $600 iPad for a lot of us wouldn't be a silly prize, but in the scheme of what I could ultimately earn if I did the thing anyway, they are silly prizes. But people will do that activity for maybe that I don't know, that instant gratification of having that thing when they hit the 500th call or whatever.
Let's put that anywhere, Bob. So Dave, how do we build that team, right? That's what we were talking about here. You got to have the team around you. You mentioned the Chiefs. Obviously, they built it through trades and drafts, right? In the sports world. But in the business world, how do we build that team so we get the right leverage around us, the right people in our world? How do we know who they are, et cetera, et cetera? Talk on that for a moment.
Okay, well, this is interesting. This would be what I would classify as structure.
Okay.
So, one of the fallacies that network marketing was classified as was a pyramid structure. Well, all business is a pyramid structure. You got the guy at the top and you got the people underneath them, and, et cetera, et cetera. In our business, it never really looked like a pyramid because it would go straight down, it would go across and then down and over and all over the place. But the real key here is for anybody. Okay, so let's say, Chad, that you wanted to start doing this. My first question to you is, what do you want as a result of doing this business? You would tell me what you wanted, then I could create a map and then create the direction and the steps and what you need to do step by step by step. Now, we go to a point called the make break point. So, what's the make break point? Well, that's the point where the activity below you is greater in benefit than you walking away from it. That fear of loss.
Okay.
So, my job and role with you is to help you. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make here is they don't find a mentor to work with. And so I always built one person at a time. So if you were going to work with me, it would be you and me. I'm working for you until you're successful. And then move on to the next guy. Because once you're successful, then I can walk away and go to Tahiti. Because you're motivated. You got the money, you got the organization, you got the structure, you got the ego stuff, you got the guest speaking, you got all of that stuff. That's done. And so I don't have to worry about that. And away we go. But it's a concept, it's a strategy of how you do it. Just like I know that, from the standpoint of Bob's position, he's got strategies with real estate.
Yeah.
That have been taught, these guys that you're talking about have put together, and you go this way, you go this way. This is how it works. Now, if you layer it and get 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 becomes 16, by the time you get down to 6 or 7 levels, you got 1,000 people. And again, so it's micromanaging all the way up. So I don't manage the whole group because I had over 30,000 in my organization at that time, at the peak of my success. But I only dealt with probably 24 people who then had people who then had people. I would go talk at events with 8, 10, 12,000 people at a time, but that was a whole different kettle of fish. My role was, if you were my guy and you and I made this pact that you wanted to do this, my job is to help you build your organization where you're in charge. This is your deal. Once you're successful, then I have the choice I don't never walk away, but I don't have to pay as much attention because you got it.
Yeah, I'm like having a realization for the first time, I think.
Same one as I'm having? What is yours?
Well, we're just so our company's network marketing. Like I always had this kind of the Amway, right? We're not like that. But now that he's like Dave's kind of unpackaging it for me, I'm like, how can I have been so dumb? Like that's clearly what we are. And it's not bad. It's not a bad thing, right? Like,
no, and Bob, you're absolutely right. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole life, my kids' education, traveling the world, all the benefits, everything came about as me. But it was just good old-fashioned business.
Yeah.
There wasn't
slightly different.
Yeah. I don't rip people off. You can't. And so when I get so frustrated, network marketing doesn't work. Well, did you make it work? No. How often did you try? I mean, I tried 13 different times.
You know what I find interesting, Bob, hearing Dave talk, there's 2 things I'm taking from the last thing Dave had to say. One, he's talking about he went and he got one person and he made that person a success before he moved on to the next person. Look at the the lessons that we know in the real estate world, it's go get as many as you can. Maybe one of them will work out. What would it look like if we stopped and found one person and didn't leave their side until they were truly a success and then moved on to the second person?
Dave's saying this is a process and you got to be really invested in that process like the whole time. And most people go, okay, I get it. I get the process. I get it. How fast can I do this thing? Right. And they just, to their detriment, they want to do it fast instead of actually like doing it.
And here, just to address that point with you, Chad, just get a piece of paper and write 10 names across and understand that if it grows in depth, how do you help 10 people grow in depth at the same time? It's almost impossible. So somebody's going to suffer. And most people don't know what to do. But here's what I found out. When you work in tandem with somebody else, your collaboration is better, your strength is better, your efficiency is better, your results are better, because it's the team. You're working together as a team to make it happen. You're not by yourself. And the worst place that you can be is by yourself at home with no organization, no structure, no company, trying to figure out how to make this work. And that's where people die.
And the other thing I'm hearing is span of control, right? You can't, one general doesn't run the whole army. Right. He runs all these guys. I don't know my ranks well enough, and I don't mean to offend anybody who's in the military. Right? The generals talk to this guy. These guys talk to these guys. The private's way down here. He just salutes the general when the general walks by. The general isn't leading him
very true.
Purposefully. He's leading him through others, and that's what Dave's saying. Some people are building organizations out there, Bob, that are so big, and they're attempting to lead everybody, and they can't do it. Span of control doesn't allow. You've got to pick those right 5, 10 people that you're leading and let them lead the others and grow it deep.
Yeah.
And and also to that point too, is they have the same structure. So they have their people, and the people underneath them have their people, and the people underneath them have their people. So it's really a mix of a bunch of individuals with their own business working together on the same team.
That's awesome. Okay. So Dave,
I don't know I wasn't expecting to wake up on a Wednesday and have like an epiphany about our business model Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
All right, Bob, you can now fairly say to everybody you are in network marketing. All right, folks, Dave gave it to you earlier. If you want more, you can go to besmarterwithdave.com. That's where you can get, Dave, the 10 key lessons to fuel success, right? They'll go to the site. They'll end up being able to get that. They'll be able to have a conversation with you if they want to learn more. I can see Bob typing in his information.
And I feel like the second part you didn't mention that we also get is clearing up the myths of MLM, which I needed. And Dave did a little bit of that for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all hear network marketing and we just assume.
There was an article written on the web, and it was the 25 actions of MLM that border illegal activities. And I saw that, caught that. And I said, well, what the hell is 25 things that border, So I looked at it. The person that wrote it didn't have a clue about network marketing. So what I did was I took and answered all 25 of these things with the truth of the matter. And this is the challenge with the internet today, is because you don't necessarily get the truth. You get somebody's opinion.
Yeah. A lot of opinions out there, Dave. A lot of opinions. I'm a firm believer that the great downfall of social media is making everybody believe that their opinion matters.
That is a good point.
There are definitely levels of opinions we should tap into. Like, I'll take Dave's opinion on MLM, not some, person that went on Google and ChatGPT. Dave, appreciate you coming today, man. Thank you.
All right, folks, you know where to find him. You know how to stay in touch with Dave if you want to learn more. Dave, we appreciate you joining us here at Win, Make, Give today, folks. Until our next episode, as always, do good.